The next morning, George was busy at the office, caught up in work while I had the whole day to myself. While he attended meetings and managed deadlines, I spent my time exploring, relaxing, and enjoying the city at my own pace. Even though our days were different, we both looked forward to the free time we'd have together later. By the time the afternoon arrived, we were finally free. With a few hours to spare, we decided to explore a bit more of the city together. I couldn't help but exclaim, "Let's try something different today." And I couldn't help but smile as I heard George wittily say, "Sounds perfect. Lead the way." We took a cab to a museum, spending time immersed in Thailand's culture and history. The exhibits were fascinating, and the experience felt both meaningful and heartfelt. It was a quiet, reflective moment amidst the excitement of the past days. After the museum, we wandered into a local market, weaving through the lively stalls filled with vibrant fabrics, handmade crafts, and delicious street food. George was on a mission. His office was hosting an annual cultural dinner, and he needed a traditional outfit for the event. I held up a beautifully embroidered Thai men's attire to show George. He examined it, nodding in approval, and said, "Yeah, but let's see if we can get a better price." And so, the bargaining began. We threw in exaggerated gasps and dramatic expressions at the prices. The vendor, clearly amused by our antics, finally laughed and knocked down the price. All right, special price just for you two," she said, shaking her head with a smile. George grinned, victorious. "See? Charm works every time." As I admired some delicate jewelry, I turned around, and George was gone. "George?" For a moment, my stomach tightened. The market was packed, and I had no idea which direction he had gone. Just as I was about to call him, I heard his voice behind me. "Relax, I was just getting us these. Thought you might like to try something new." "You disappeared for food? You nearly gave me a heart attack." George chuckled and responded, "What can I say? Priorities." Rolling my eyes but unable to hide my smile, I took a bite. Turns out it was worth the temporary panic. As we continued strolling through the market, something else caught our attention. A pair of unisex bracelets made of bronze. Simple yet striking. Without a second thought, we decided to get them, each taking one. But before we could put them on ourselves, George held out his hand. "Let me," he said. I smiled and let George put the bracelet on my wrist, securing it gently. Then I slipped my bracelet onto his wrist and he adjusted it into place. "Now we match," he said with a soft smile. I looked down at the bracelet, smiling. "Yeah, we do." After exploring, we sat down at the museum's cozy cafe. Over coffee, George suddenly looked at his phone and asked, "Hey, do you want to say hi to my mom? She keeps asking who I'm spending my free time with." "Wait, really? Won't she mind?" I asked. "Not at all. She loves meeting new people." Before I could even prepare myself, I heard George's voice saying, "Hey Mom, meet Sophie," as the screen lit up with his mother's smiling face. "Oh, so you are Sophie. George mentioned you. You two are having a good time in Bangkok?" She asked playfully. "Yes, Auntie. It's been quite an adventure." She playfully responded, "I hope he's behaving himself." "Mostly," I teased, making George shake his head with a grin. George smirked. "She likes you. She doesn't usually talk to strangers that easily." Good to know I passed the test. Later that night, before heading back to our hotels, we decided to go for a late-night bike ride. We booked one bike each, along with a rider, and rode through the glowing city streets. The wind rushed past us as we laughed, teasing each other about how we looked with the helmets on. The city lights sparkled like stars, and for a brief moment, it felt like we were in our own little world. Just us, the open road, and the joy of the moment. As the ride came to an end, we sat on the side of a quiet street, catching our breath. "I'm really glad we did this," I said, still grinning from the thrill. George, with his contented voice, said, "Me too," as he looked over at me. Then, with a thoughtful expression, he continued, "Sometimes it's the unplanned moments that end up meaning the most." I smiled, looking over the bracelet he had put on me earlier. This will make sure I won't forget you. Just then, my phone buzzed with my flight reminder. I sighed. I guess this is it, huh? George looked at me for a moment before saying, maybe not. Maybe this is just the beginning. I met his gaze, my heart skipping slightly. Guess we'll find out. A long silence stretched between us, but it wasn't empty. It was filled with emotions neither of us could fully put into words. The weight of an unspoken goodbye, the warmth of a connection that had formed in just a few days, and the uncertainty of what came next. The next day would mean goodbye, but for now we just sat there, letting the moment last as long as it could. As if by staying still, we could make time pause just for a little while longer.